Hey there, welcome to Holland's Kino Club. Today I'm going to talk about Eddington. So it is very abnormal for me to watch a movie 2 days in a row. That is not a normal thing I do. And I also want to say that I hope Ari Aster can forgive me for ever doubting his storytelling capabilities. I was extremely hesitant to watch Eddington because the moment I found out that it was set during the pandemic, I just became immediately apprehensive. I've seen 2 or 3 movies set during the pandemic or that use COVID as a metaphor or an analogy for something else, and they've all sucked. I didn't realize that Ari Aster was politically kind of based. I didn't realize that he was not just a liberal, but a bit further left-leaning. So please, Mr. Aster, do not jail me. I apologize. I should have known I was going to like this film when I saw liberals complaining about it on Twitter, saying it makes liberals look bad. I don't think Ari Aster needs to make anybody look bad when you guys do it for yourselves. This isn't a movie review. In fact, most of the stuff you see on this channel will be me like autistically hyper-focusing on one thing in a movie that I really, really like. Eddington was way more of a surprising satire of like modern day America than I was expecting. And because it's an Ari Aster film, there's a few things you can expect. One, that he cares deeply about the characters that he's creating and is making them as interesting or maybe relatable as possible, while also still having those characters be insanely flawed. And 2, that in the 3rd act it's going to go completely off the rails, which with Eddington I didn't expect at all. See that? See that? Yeah, it's called a receding hairline. If you're watching this, I'm assuming you've seen Eddington. I will be dropping some massive spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, I would not want to spoil it for you. I went into this movie basically knowing nothing. I knew that it was about some sort of drama between a small town sheriff and a smug liberal mayor. If this was a movie made by a liberal, all the liberal characters would be smug and always correct, and the conservative characters would be needlessly moody and annoying. And Ari Aster does a great job of showing liberals being smug and being just as evil and conniving as conservatives can be. At the heart of this film is Joseph Cross, our small town sheriff, who wants to fight against the tyranny of mask mandates.
Can't breathe in a mask. It's a mandate, Sheriff, isn't it, since last week?
I do find it very difficult to breathe in these masks.
He is soft-spoken, and I would go as far as to say he is your average dumb fuck American. That being said, he's not an evil person, but becomes an evil person and acts in insane ways towards the end of the film. There's a lot of great character moments in this movie. I particularly liked the 2 teenage boys that LARP as social justice warriors to try to get pussy. I thought that was really funny. As previously stated, I really like that the liberal characters are just as evil as the conservatives. One example is being that the smug liberal mayor, played by Pedro Pascal, wants to bring in some AI tech startup into their small county. Excuse me, God, I drink coffee, I can't stop burping. Bring in like some massive AI tech startup to bring money into their town. We all know how that shit goes. The AI tech startups eat up all the water, cause electricity rates to skyrocket. Stuff that on paper to a small town or a small county would sound good, but in the long run could be ultimately detrimental to not just them, but the environment, their day-to-day living.
Why doesn't he explain about the water and energy these data centers consume when we're in a historic drought?
But that's just kind of focusing on characters within the movie that hold some sort of actual institutional power. When you see the younger characters in the film that are engaging in the BLM protests in the town, whatever, he showcases them as being kind of annoying, obnoxious, self-righteous.
I'm just another privileged white kid, and my job is to sit down and listen, which is what I plan to do after making this speech, which I have no right to make. This vigil is happening on stolen ground.
What's funny though is, like, in theory, these kids are right with their analysis, their political analysis of the world, but they are annoying. They're super fucking obnoxious, which adds a lot of humor watching these kids kind of lose their minds. But ultimately they're harmless. I know here in Cincinnati, when the BLM protests happened, I was working at a news station in town. Not a good experience. I worked as a camera guy. We had one bus stop that had like glass paneling that got broke. That was basically the extent of any damage here in Cincinnati. But if you talk to any boomer in Cincinnati, they would act like our city was just as bad as any of the others, that the whole place burned down, when I was out in the shit. I was in downtown Cincinnati. You can see some footage right here. I was shot in a crisp 720p. I don't know why. Just everything was broadcasted in 720p. But that's kind of what happens in Eddington. When the little BLM protests happen, it's just a bunch of annoying kids being annoying, being self-righteous. That's kind of the extent of it. But the boomer characters in the movie react how boomers would, acting as though that the whole place is being burned to the ground.
What is going on? There is a riot happening right in front of your faces.
Let's get to the meat and potatoes, though. The thing that fascinates me with Eddington isn't only the satire. It's not like the great writing where everything you see on screen ties back later in the movie. There's no unused real estate with the footage that we're shown. It's the fact that ultimately Eddington is the inverted conservative power fantasy. And what I mean by that is that this is where the big spoilers come in. The back half of the film, the last act, we get introduced to Antifa super soldiers. Now, I'm sure you could analyze those characters as being like federal agents coming into a small town to sow discord, but I want to meet the movie where it is. So I'm just going to accept that they are Antifa super soldiers acting as an organized terror cell. And if you know anything, you know Antifa isn't that. It's just like a loose amalgamation of a bunch of different types of leftists, anarchists, whatever, but they're not organized. You know, they're not able to get on a private jet and then become like military operatives in a small town. I gotta say it, dude, that fucking shot that's tracking through the jet and that sign that says white man is the virus and we are the cure is so fucking funny, and I've wanted to print it so bad just to hang it up on my wall because it's such a silly thing to see. So in the back half of the film, Joseph Cross, or Sheriff Joe Cross, gets to live out the conservative power fantasy by being hunted by Antifa super soldiers using his tactical skill of shooting, which once again, it's shown throughout the movie that he is a good shot. And when he does end up fighting these guys, he like kills one of them from a distance with a handgun after an explosion goes off. In the conservative power fantasy, this would be fucking badass. You're the military op sent in to tactically ascertain and kinetically end unpatriotic whatever. You know, you get what I'm saying. You get the conservative power fantasy that Antifa is organized and that you get to watch this man dismantle them using his all-American grit. But that's not the character in the film. The character in the film is a good shot with a gun, but he's also soft-spoken. He's a cuck. He gets walked over the whole time. He ends up killing the mayor and the mayor's son, who are both Hispanic, and then tries to frame the black sheriff and his three-man crew for the murder. So he is doing everything the annoying liberal students said he would do, or acted as if he would do. He's doing all of that while also having COVID. So you get this amazing sequence, this amazing shootout akin to something like Dragged Across Concrete or No Country for Old Men, that's super tense, that's well shot. But the whole time he's doing this deep COVID breathing. There's a juxtaposition to what you're seeing within that kind of conservative power fantasy, not to mention the end of the film that to me almost feels a bit sadomasochistic, because you get the montage of his life after he gets stabbed in the fucking head. After you get the montage of the kid that saves him becoming a right-wing darling, akin to Kyle Rittenhouse. There is nothing more American than somebody that is essentially untalented and unspecial being boosted to like a saint-like status within like right-wing culture war shit for essentially doing nothing. This one is a bit funnier just because the kid actually saves Joe Cross. He kills the guy, whereas, you know, Kyle Rittenhouse just like killed two dudes. I know there'll probably be people in the comments being like, he killed a pedophile. He just kind of killed two guys. Anyways, sorry, I got off on a tangent. But the last bit of the film, this last montage where you see his life after the fact, where he's a paraplegic, it's almost like sadomasochistic in nature, because he got the conservative power fantasy of being able to live out this like military not I would say military, but this operation, being able to fight Antifa super soldiers, getting lifted up into sainthood and admired. But he can never do anything for himself again. And he ultimately got there by killing minorities. Anyways, that's my quick thoughts on Eddington. Thanks for watching. I think the next movie I'll be covering will be The Northman. I've wanted to talk about The Northman for a while. One of the few people I know that genuinely just loves that film. It's my favorite Robert Eggers film. I think Viking stuff is kind of lame for the most part. Guys that are into Viking stuff kind of ruined it for me. And somehow Robert Eggers was able to take that time period and make it insanely compelling. And you know what? If all else fails, I'll become some sort of YouTube grifter and only post videos about Disney going woke and movies made for actual babies.